Right back at you, live and in color. The Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Seen on Sportsnet, listened on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus. Leafs on the ice. Where are they? Muskoka? Muskoka Lumber Community Center, home of the Muskoka Bears Junior C team.
Go Bears.
Here you go.
Did someone call you or something?
Yeah, one of the guys, I forget the guy's name, but he reached out about to tell me that they're where they're playing, and he was one of the guys, I think it's the coach, maybe of the team, reached out to me. So
way to go!
There you go. Yeah,
love that.
So that's why he got the call out in the lineup.
Huge
he sent me an email. There you go.
Huge plug.
The power of the Bears.
Yeah. So they're up there. They're bonding.
Mm-hmm.
We've had bonding conversations.
Many
before.
forced bonding trips.
Why didn't we go up there and do that before our show started?
Go play paintball. The three of us, just a 3-man paintball game.
I tried to get you guys 2 weeks ago, and you bailed.
Rosedale, yeah.
I still took Sammy out to Rosedale.
I thought when we played Angus Glen, the three of us, for the Renaissance.
That was a good bonding
That was good.
one.
Renaissance,
That was a
right?
good day. Renaissance, yeah. Recovery
Did we
show.
win?
Great event.
Did we win?
No.
We finished second.
Yeah.
But we couldn't make a putt.
But I will say, I thought the boys' vibes were very high from that.
We were ready to
We
go.
really enjoyed hanging out with each other. That was bonding. I feel like we really did bond on that trip.
We're
game.
back.
I don't think anybody's
No?
thought that yesterday's show.
No, I don't think so.
I'm really hoping today that it just starts to come to fruition
Maybe-
and they can see that the bonding paid off. But I didn't get a sense
You know
that
what we
we
need?
showed anybody we bonded.
We need stogies on the show.
Yeah.
We need a couple of big cigars. I think that would get us through. Get the vibes loose in here.
Stogies are, sorry, my controversial opinion, stogies are gross.
Yeah.
Give me,
So,
give me a dart all
not
day long,
share.
but I
Every year-
cannot have a cigar.
Every year, under probably Shanny's close to 9-10 years now, they've done this bonding thing. I mean, has it ever really shown on the ice?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you played in the NHL for a lot of years. Is there not value in getting everyone away together?
When you look at this team over the years, did they ever really truly come across as a very tight, close team, or
Do you have to fight to show that you're close? Because it
know.
sounds like they've liked each other.
But it does sound like they've constantly said how close and
Buddy,
tight they
8
are.
straight years, closest team in the league.
I know, but for me, it's the proof in the pudding at the end, right? I mean,
if a round of
is it
golf puts it over the
overrated?
hump.
Is it overrated?
I always hated it when they're like, hey, we're going away. You're playing paintball together. You're in a golf group with this guy and that guy who you don't actually hang out with. Yeah. But I do see at the end of it, it's like, all right, I hung out with a guy I normally wouldn't. I know him a little better. I see some value in it. I know,
but it has to kind of show. The only thing that matters is if it shows on the ice and you can bring.
The Panthers weren't like, we won the cup because we played golf in Muskoka in September.
No,
that's not why.
They won the cup because
they're stacked and they're good.
They watched each other's back like hawks on the ice.
For sure.
Better than any other team.
Yeah. So do you think that's
league.
well because they're close? They're a close-knit group.
But I guess there's different types of close.
Yeah. I personally liked those bonding trips because I know I had a personality where I can go up there and I knew I could kind of keep the guys loose. I could make them laugh. I could get them to just have a good time. Right. So it was in my wheelhouse.
Sure. But
it's just not for everybody, though.
I really like you. We spend a lot of time together. I enjoy your company.
You sound like you're convincing yourself.
If Arber Xhekaj comes in here and elbows you in the face, I'm going to need a minute to talk myself into fighting him on your behalf. I'm going to need a sec. Be like, I guess I should do this. I'm going to look like some of the Leafs going, is that me? Am I the closest guy?
But I think this type of team under Craig Berube and the ask from him will bring them closer, just that alone.
Yeah.
And if it makes it look like the cherry on top is that you got to spend 2 or 3 days up in Muskoka and it brought you guys closer together. But I can already see that they're going to have this team that is going to piss off some other teams.
Yeah. Let me quiz you on something while we're on this topic. What event that a team went through made you feel more close? What sort of thing would a team go through where you're suddenly like, that really did it. That brought our group together. Because there's one for me, a theme every year. Is there something that comes to mind for you?
I don't know. I mean, for me, it was just a matter of like having group decisions on the road, and that included maybe breaking curfew.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we doing this? If we're doing it, we have to all do it.
Yeah, we got to all stick together, and I'm not breaking curfew unless I'm with Mark Messier.
That's what I was going to say. Was
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, Kypreos, you broke curfew, and I said, yeah. Mark told me to come with him. What would you have done, Coley or Keenan, or you know, what would you do in that situation? Would you tell Mark no?
Right.
Because I'll tell you the answer that would bring us closer together is saying, yes. I'm coming.
I had like a line brawl in mind. When you go into the dressing room after there's 20 gloves on the ice and everyone's in the dressing room and talking about what just happened, adrenaline is through the roof.
Yeah.
That is another way that it ends up happening organically. You can't plan that, but I guess you can.
And you're right. It is those emotional elements on the ice that I think is the biggest proof in the pudding. I think we got a chance to see a lot more of it this year with Craig Berube.
Yeah. You think?
I think Sheldon tried on occasion to go that way, but it never kind of really showed. But between Tree Living and Berube, the ask is going to be a lot more in your face for the players.
Mm-hmm.
And if they've already had the conversation on accountability, and if we don't believe that your commitment to the team on and off the ice is there, we're going to call you out a lot more behind the scenes, probably more than ever. And I think the one thing I can tell you from my experiences coming in with a new coach is you're always on your best behavior early, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's that first impression. I got to make a good first impression. So all the guys are finishing their checks, and they've played hard. I think I've seen them play hard this preseason.
Agreed. I was just looking at Stephen Lawrence's fight card to see if they had guys that would do it past Ryan Reeves. That physical element when, Chief leans on him and says, it's time, like who is there that's going to do it? Because they haven't had a ton of those guys. My boy Nick Robertson's probably not going to do it. So maybe Lawrence, he's got about 6 or 7 fights on his fight card.
Quickly, before we move on to the massive list of things we didn't get to yesterday, Berube got asked about like his favorite bonding thing, and it was a Mike Keenan story. Did you want to hear it? It's funny.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so it'd be clip number 2 there, Derek.
What was your favorite team bonding trip as a player?
Mike Keenan took us to Lake Placid one year. I was a rookie, and actually it was kind of like throughout this. It was in the middle of the year, and we went there for like 3 days, and so we get dressed for practice. Right, we're gonna go out and practice, and here comes Mike Keenan in the room, fully dressed. Says, "Let's go, boys. You want a piece of me? I'm going to be playing today." So we went out and scrimmaged, and Mike was playing, but nobody took a shot at him. I got a good kick out of it, though.
Kip, you guys are the same age, you and Berube, and you're with the Flyers. Would you have been there?
Yeah, we played together in Hershey briefly.
Okay, but you weren't on that Lake Placid.
No. I was still in the minors, I think.
Gotcha.
With Hershey.
Would you have run Keenan?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I would have. He's actually, I think he's in.
He's doing
town.
a book tour.
He's got a book tour. Well, we should get him on.
Would you have a twitch if he was in here? Would it make you uncomfortable or what?
No, not at all.
I think if my junior coach is in
Did
here,
you talk to him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Like
I just saw him this past weekend, and we hung out, and he told some lies, and and Brian Leach was in the back going, "That's not the way I remember it. That's not the way I remember it." And
it's a great part about being in your 70s. You just kind of no one remembers. You just kind of
we'll get him on.
All right,
let's get him on and listen to some of those
fake stories.
Some of those stories, for sure. All right, so where do you guys want to start? Because there's so many topics that we're going to carry through probably right up until Game 1 next Wednesday night. when
Well,
the
I
Toronto
think-
Maple Leafs open up against the Montreal Canadiens?
This theme of team building, team bonding kind of takes you to leadership naturally, doesn't it?
Sure.
John Tavares hands the captaincy over to Auston Matthews.
I'm not sure he handed it.
He willingly gave it to him out of the goodness of his
Okay.
altruistic heart.
Listen, I'm not going to pat ourselves on the back. But
Oh yeah,
we
I'll
were.
do it. You guys were all over this for
We
3
we,
years.
we started this conversation, and of course, there's always the backlash that you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're idiots. They'll never ever take away the captaincy from John Tavares.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they did. So, and I reported that I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not, but the discussions are real, and there is a real strong possibility that they will make Auston Matthews captain next year. So ultimately, surprised or not surprised?
Not at all surprised myself. As you mentioned, we've been talking about it for years. And to me, the hiring of Craig Berube, I'm hoping, is the start of a more honest Toronto Maple Leafs. And I don't mean from a PR perspective, but he's an honest effort guy, no BS, straightforward. Much like Auston Matthews is the leader of this team. He is the guy they look to when the chips are down. He plays a ton of minutes. He answers questions in the media. Tavares was a good captain for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but this is the leader of the team. He's the one that they're going to go as he goes. So this is a more honest representation of it rather than, he came here to the goodness of his heart, so we gave him the C sort of thing. This makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does make sense. There is part of me that's like, just maybe let him play out the end of this contract as the captain. And
Well, I got a lot of that from a lot of people
same.
going,
avoid
just
this
let him
ceremony.
finish.
100%.
Let him. Why now?
Because
Why?
you don't have years to waste. It's time to turn the page. New
Listen,
Leafs.
I am not disagreeing with you, but there was a lot of people, Sammy, that
People in my
said,
life reached
"Come
out to me
on,
and said that's
it's
like it feels
right.
dirty is what I got a lot.
dirty."
Dirty. Like it felt like making him sit up there.
Not house hockey.
Listen, I understand it, but I'm just telling you, like as a guy that gets a lot of Leafs texts in his life,
Yeah.
people were talking about how you're making him sit up there, you're making him go through the whole process, how it just felt a little bit weird to have it be like that.
Yeah, I didn't love that.
You know, that like making him sit up there and be like, I'm happy for him and doing like, I don't know. It felt a little bit weird. It did. I think it was the right choice, but maybe you didn't have to make it this offseason.
There's not too many guys that I've played with that would have handled it like John Tavares did, right?
All class.
Well, listen, he took the high road, okay? He took the high road. And there are some players out there that have worn the C that said, if you don't think that I can still do this or you don't want me to do that, then get rid of me. I'm out of here. I will not stand for this.
Do you think the Leafs were kind of hoping that would happen?
Listen, if it could help them alleviate the cap, I think the Leafs were prepared to hear that from him, but he didn't go down that road. But I know a lot of players that I've talked to, ex-players, that would have said, why would he accept that so readily that they've come to you and said, we can't win with you as a captain, so you need to pass it over.
He probably played that movie out in his mind. He probably saw how quickly it would have gone from, you don't think I can lead, then send me out of here. And next day he'd have been in, Columbus
he's
or
made it
somewhere.
crystal clear that he wants to stay here, and this move can only help him, right? Really?
Yeah, so of course.
that's what I was
gives
gonna
him a
ask.
chance to be a part of this going forward.
That's what I was going to ask both of you. Is there part of him maybe, and I've never really been a part of a team like this or a captaincy or having to deal with that, but from your two perspective, where he'd be like, oh, thank God, I don't have to be the captain of this anymore. I can just kind of play my role as a third line center. I don't have to talk to the media every single day. There's no part of him that would be like that.
I don't claim to know John Tavares well.
Yeah.
But
No
that
way.
ain't him you're describing.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
From what
Yeah.
I can see from afar,
Yeah.
I would sit there and say that since this guy's put on skates, he's been the best player on the team every year, top scorer. And this is new territory for him, man.
It is, Kip, but some people recognize where they're at and adapt. We've seen Corey Perry's second act as a bottom, 6 guy. We've seen Jason Spezza come here.
Perry can go out there and piss people off. He can spear you. He could.
Yes.
There's different ways Corey Perry can influence a hockey game.
Spezza then.
How Spezza? Whose knee did he take out in Winnipeg? Okay,
No, he took out his head with his knee.
Okay, who fought in the playoffs to wow, what a warrior Spezza is, fighting and kneeing guys and willing to get suspended. I'm just telling you now, is John going to go and do those sorts of things to make this transition that you speak of?
No, because I don't see it as those guys became tough guys to stay in the league. I see it as these are high IQ hockey players who did what they had to do to stay in the league, to stay where they wanted and stay relevant. And for Tavares, if that evolution isn't don't become a tough guy, but become a third line center. Maybe he's just someone saying, hey, recognize where I'm at. I'm a 65-point guy, not a 100-point guy anymore. Maybe he's just showing a willingness to do what it takes to be a part of this thing here.
I think that should be the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But when a guy's been a captain his whole career and a star, all-star, and a Team Canada guy, that's a very big pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's probably had to do some major soul searching this offseason with his diminished role and the way that it's a big thing to ask him. Like, I'm sure it was even hard for them to go for it.
And you also, you're not sure if he's going to be able to adapt and do the things that you're talking about. Like, so, a lot of conversation is signing an extension. Okay, like, what's the number? What are you paying for? Do we know?
You got to wait and see. You can't give him a nickel till you see what it looks like as third liner wearing an A. You can't make that decision now. He might be worth, I don't know, maybe $4 million. Maybe he's worth $800,000. It depends how this works.
So you're not sure? No one's sure about Willie at second line center, man. Like, if it doesn't work out, I don't know what choices you have, but one of them is moving John back in.
Oh, yeah.
And him still finding a way to put 55, 60 points up as a second line centerman. Like,
yeah, there's a very real scenario where it's just Matthews, Marner, Willie, and John Tavares as the two pairings in the top two lines again. Right?
For sure.
Like, that is
I mean, it's a recipe for a 100-point season.
But I think at least the Leafs have acknowledged we can't win like that. We've tried and tried again and tried again and tried again. Yeah. And I think that they understand that.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're going to sign John to anything, you got to make sure that it's crystal clear that this is your new role. You're going to play the third line. And what do we expect out of you in that position? Is it 40 points, 50 points, 60 points? Does that mean he's still number one is he third line, but yet number one on the power play?
Yeah,
right.
Probably.
Yep. I'm just looking, like his ice time last year was pretty low, was it not?
1735?
Yeah. 1750. Yeah. So, I mean, he's working his way to third line minutes. That's the second line minutes, but.
Yeah. But, I mean, not to get too far off on this conversation, but I'm okay with, doing it now because Auston is the face of the team, and you've got to you got to give Auston more ownership here, buddy. Think of the money and the time that you've invested in this guy, and he's put up a real good show for you with the 60 goals, 69. And
if we're going to call Marner a 100-point guy, we can call him a 70-goal guy, I think.
He did score 70. He scored one in the playoffs.
You're all in on him.
Yeah.
So, hey, this is your team now, right?
Absolutely. And so, do you believe that he, as a leader, is a guy who could pull a team through?
No, because there's no proof of that. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to fall on. This is just, you just hope that this is an extension of the evolution of Auston Matthews. You are hoping that this is the direction that it goes.
Yeah.
But up until now, no real huge sample size that you've led this team to anything at this point.
Yeah. I think a reasonable, and I get that. I am a believer just watching the way this guy plays hockey. And I think Barkov was kind of a nice template for him, a nice mold. Barkov might have had 4 PIMs in playoffs, but he's big and he's strong and he dragged people to the net and he played big in big games. And he hadn't. Barkov had years where he was not a good playoff player. So you can see how it can get there for Matthews.
But Barkov doesn't, the numbers aren't important to Barkov.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Austin's at that point where it's like, it ain't about 50, 60, or 70 goals. Yep. It's about
the end of last
winning.
year was sure about 70 goals.
It was. And I wonder, it was another theme all year last year. Like, guys, but I wonder for these Toronto Maple Leaf core guys, if the numbers, all the numbers, dollars included, mostly dollars, are ever going to be enough where it's like, you've been paid, focus on winning. You've hit big milestones, focus on winning. Like none of this other stuff. They've all got it now. They have individual accolades. They have a lot of money. It's like, okay, you're running out of years to be great. And the young guys behind you are going to be the next great ones. It's now. So I wonder if they'll be mature enough to do what you're saying and saying, I don't care if I get 70, I'll get 50. I just want to win more.
So from a fan's perspective, you look at Matthews getting the C and, it's an outside perspective as well. How much, he's going to talk to the media more. He's the first guy out there.
What's the real change?
What is the real change? Like, is Matthews holding back something in the room the last 7 years? Like, is he not emboldened to be like, hey, guys, we got to get going here? Like, in the room, what is the dynamic change, if any? That's the question I have no idea the answer
you
to.
can't.
None?
You can't get a guy to just change
Like he's not going to
that.
start running guys through the end boards.
Is he?
And I don't.
He's Obama just giving these long speeches.
I think he's just. There's going to be more the same, but with a little bit more emphasis on, like, nobody can be happy until we win.
And you want to be the guy.
And you just have to set that tone that the only thing that matters here is winning and getting ready for the playoffs.
Your coach needs to be able to point at your captain on video and go, if he can do that, you can all do that. And I think that's hard with Tavares just because of his skating right now, but Matthews should be able to point to him a little bit more.
Defensively responsible guy who shoots it in the net a whole lot would be a good guy to kind of. The idea of what his game is pretty perfect for a coach to build off the back of.
Yeah.
Maybe not the playoffs as much, but regular season, no question.
All right.
We've done
exhausted on that.
We've done an hour and a half on the Leafs, and we haven't mentioned the goaltenders.
They have goalies.
Yeah, 2 goalies, in fact.
4.
4, yeah. Good goaltending depth.
4.
Easy.
Well, there is 4.
There's 4.
And
in body.
There's 4 that they think, push comes to shove, can go in there and play.
How many are they going to
4.
need? 4? That's the question.
We're currently having a Matt Murray conversation if people can't hear the undertones of what's happening.
Kyper's boy.
Yeah, because there's Woll, Stolarz, Hildeby, and Matt Murray.
Yeah.
And Matt Murray is off hip surgeries to both hips, right?
Matt Murray's just got to, come back and
play some American League games and show
he's Jones.
Can play. Yeah, Jones played 10 games for the Leafs last year, put up good numbers. The Hildebeest.
He's playing in the minors, and he'll be called upon if there's an injury or some issues. And come March, April, if you're really, really comfortable with Hildebeest at the third position, you flip Matt Murray as an asset.
Do you think he'd get claimed on waivers, or do you think he needs to show he can play goal?
I don't think he gets claimed on waivers.
Martin George played 19 games for the Leafs last year.
And he was good.
Started 19 and played in 22.
And he was good.
Yeah, there was a couple games there where they needed him badly for a couple times. So but I mean the big question here is Woll and Stolarz for the number 1 and 2 or number 1 and 2, whatever way you want to look at it.
Do we have a?
I really believe this is both guys have been told that if you play better than the other guy, you will goaltend more than the other guy.
So Woll's only played once in preseason.
Do we know why?
No. And they asked Joseph Woll that very question a few days ago. I believe we have the clip on it if you want to hear his response to the question.
Good producing.
Okay, there we go.
In a game since that first one, I'm just curious, what's the thought process in terms of your preseason playing time at this camp?
Yeah, when I'm called to go in the net, I'll go in the net and do my best. And I think I'm trying to get everyone into games and whatnot. So yeah, no, I'm comfortable with where I'm at, and I'm excited to play some more hockey.
Okay. And then the coach was asked about this situation as well. Craig Berube on...
Is it anything to do with the medical staff, or is that...
Has nothing to do with anything. Don't read into anything like that. It's the plan.
The plan.
So
The plan.
This is the first I've heard of the capitalized the plan.
Derek, we need that drop, please. It has nothing
It's
to
the plan.
No, it has nothing to do with anything,
Nothing
please.
to do with anything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
He says he's getting all three. Nothing to do with anything. A little strange, right? A young guy, going to be your starter potentially. Like, let's get the things going in the right direction for playoffs. They also started in the first game with like a legit lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I'd still like to think that this is kind of funneling towards Joseph Woll getting more of a serious chance to be the number one.
Yeah.
He's got the 3-year contract. He's the homegrown guy. He's the younger guy.
But you don't have to. He doesn't have to go 8 of 10 to start the season, or 9 of 11 or 12. So
6 to 10.
maybe 6 to 10. I don't know.
Don't read into anything like that.
I think if the Leafs are in contention in the Atlantic, which they should be, then and both of them are healthy, then I think it's looking 50, 45, 47, 50 starts for Joseph Woll.
All I know is last
It's the
year's
plan.
Game 6 to Game 7 really hangs over Joseph Woll.
Hangs over me.
That was a heartbreaking moment when he was so good in Game 6 and was about to shut out the Bruins, and it was like, they got it. They got a guy. They got one of those young guys who's going to go on a freakish run, and here he comes. And we're sitting here the day of Game 7 going, wait, what's happening right now? Who's not playing?
He literally just disappeared. Like, he played some of the best goaltending I've ever seen a goalie play, like, for the Leafs in the playoffs, which is a list of a lot of guys who have carried some crappy teams in my life. And he looked as good as any of them. And he just disappeared.
I actually feel wildly unsatisfied by the answers we have on Woll's injury, Nylander's, and Matthews. None of them ever satisfied me in terms of the team saying, here's what happened. That sucked.
Yeah, they're not going to.
But why
It's
every
the plan.
team, when they're done, they go, he had a broken wrist and he had a punctured lung.
Well, they did talk about migraines, didn't they? And
It's
they
all
talked
very nebulous.
and flu-like symptoms for Auston that left him like with pasty white, ghostly looks.
Is that what this is? That's the first time I've heard those words.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
What
someone
happened to
just mentioned it
concussions
me.
or
No, he battled. He just didn't. He had something. He
I know,
couldn't-
this is the problem.
what was it?
No.
I don't know. All I know
Don't
is
read into
he
it.
came to the rink one day and he looked like he was dipped in vanilla. That's all I know.
All right.
It was obviously the Charlie McAvoy slew foot that did it.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to trace the origin of that.
But so to go back to the goaltending,
Yeah.
I mean, Stolarz, I was not sure about the signing in terms of I'd never really seen him. I've seen him play for Florida, but I didn't. What I've seen from him in the preseason, big goalie.
He's got a chance to be a very good goaltender.
Listen, as much as you can, the constant narrative over the last few years is Mitch doesn't show up, or Auston doesn't score like he usually does, or the Leafs defense stink or whatever. There's also an argument that said just head to head, throw everything out of the equation, that the constant narrative in the playoffs is just the Leafs were out goalied. That's it. That's it. And the one time in 9 tries Samsonov was better than Vasilevsky.
And every shot went in.
And that's because Vasilevsky was.
Yeah, every shot went in.
But Sammy was good.
For sure.
Sammy was good.
Yeah, I think
right?
he was good enough.
And last year, Swayman was better. And the years before, Vasilevsky was better.
Yeah.
And if the Leafs can just get over the hump and either get Woll or Stolarz or somebody to step up, then that could also be the one thing that gets them truly, truly over the hump.
Now, goaltenders tend to have really good, like their primes are older, and I think you see goalies have great years at 28, 29, 30. Stolarz is 29. Some fancy stats, the goals saved above expected. He was, depending on how you sort it, between third and first in the NHL last year in the games he did play. He was awesome. He's 6'6". I mean, there's a lot of stuff that said, here's a guy who just needs some opportunity. I think he could be that guy, Kip, and I don't know what Woll's health will be. His ankles are an issue.
I think he had a really, really, I don't know. I mean,
He was insulated in Florida. Is that what you're going to say?
No.
Okay.
You're talking about Stolarz or?
I was,
Woll?
yeah. Yeah, Stolarz.
Okay.
Woll was also up there in those categories.
Yeah. I think Woll had a really good summer, and he understands, I think, the health issues, and at times, was there certain things in training that he could have done differently?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, goalies are weird, as we know. And, if there's a few things that you can tweak or something, or, whether or not he's got ankle issues or not, but they're strengthening other muscles. I mean, he did have that summer. I know the Leafs talked about it publicly a little bit about and Tree Living touched on this. Can he go back and can he change a few things? And I heard he did. And I heard he had a really, really good summer. And he is mentally, physically, emotionally, ready for this new challenge of just proving everybody that whatever's happened in the past has been a bit of a fluke, and I'm ready to go. So
you have to feel good that when we have goalie analysts on the show, they all rave about Woll technically. They say he's, he looks like the best goalies when he's playing well and all that. So there's high ceiling on him and a high ceiling on Stolarz. You like the odds of one of the two guys doing it. If they don't, well,
and
Hildebeest, Murray.
You mentioned
any team's in trouble if you're down to a third goalie.
You mentioned that about Woll and the offseason stuff. I mean, there's definitely a chance that they're not playing in the preseason because they're terrified of him getting hurt in the preseason.
Yeah, but I hate that.
Yeah, but I mean, we can talk about this later, maybe more in the national hour about how long the preseason is. Two starts for a goalie for me, and then you head into the regular season. I don't need him starting every game. I feel like it's a ton. So I think they're probably a little worried about they're doing off the ice stuff, working with them in practice.
Everybody's screaming that training camps, you don't need the exhibition games. They're already in shape. Shorten them. Too many guys getting hurt.
Yeah.
And now
decimated.
You want more games for him.
No, I want
to play the games.
I don't want him to play any games. I'm fine with him playing lack of games. You've completely missed.
Well, we are at the point where I want him to play the full game. I would like him to play tomorrow night for 60 minutes.
They're both going to get full games. Yeah. Stolarz and Woll will get full games.
Play Woll tomorrow and then
close out.
And then his next start will be October 9th.
It would be exactly what you wanted, which is basically 2 starts and
yeah, and then away we go. So we'll see. But I mean, dare I say I'm optimistic about the Leafs goaltending? Is that fair? Or
last year they were.
Everybody's optimistic.
They were
the whole league. 32 teams think that your goaltending's great.
But you're
this
not.
time of year.
You're not optimistic about it.
Listen, I'm a
you
big
think the
Joseph
Sharks
Woll
are?
fan.
Well, I guess they got Askarov.
I am a fan of his for sure. Okay. I think again, I saw what you guys saw last year, where it was flashes of brilliance. You got 4 guys right now where you think that the depth is pretty good.
Yeah.
None of them have ever proven that they can carry a team. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, the Murray thing aside.
So I'm would I bet money on them? Probably not.
Here's what I like. Last year, the Leafs finished 23rd in team save percentage. If these guys are okay, the Leafs are no farther behind. They're actually better than last year if they can give them league average goaltending. So I believe they can get them there. It's a low bar.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Yep.
We've gone through a show and a half yet, and we haven't even touched on what people have claimed has been their biggest problem over the course of 9 years: defense.
We haven't mentioned a defender yet.
Defense at all.
Well, I mean, there's this other thing that people are kind of sticks in their craw a little bit. The power play hasn't been mentioned either. So,
all right.
They're rolling up the same guys.
Plenty more to chew on still when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. I think as a group, we can all collectively say that we think that the Leaf blue line is much better, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much better?
Best in the Matthews era, I would say.
You're that high on it.
Yeah. Neither of you guys are?
Best in the Matthews era.
I can't put together a group in my head like it was Muzzin and Labushkin on the same time. Anyway.
Probably depth-wise, yes.
Depth-wise,
Right.
for sure. What do they got? 9 guys you could
But
capably put over the boards.
you'd like to think every once in a while you got a game breaker back there, and we'd like to think that that would be in the hands of Morgan Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Can Morgan bounce back and have a season like he did with how many years ago did he put up like 70 points?
With Ron Hainsey?
2 years ago?
No, it was a long time ago.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Ron
Right.
Hainsey was more than 2 years ago. That's for sure.
Like if Morgan Riley becomes that guy again, all of a sudden that blue line looks even better.
So he scored 20 goals in 18-19, 72 points. And in 21-22, he had 68 points in 82 games.
You got Riley, Tanev,
Mhm.
Ekman Larson, McCabe,
Mhm.
Benoit, Liljegren, Hakanpää, Rafai.
Hakanpää's not close.
Not close.
I don't think he's close. No. And I think
The coach talked about this very thing today.
okay.
In
You got it?
Muskoka at the home of the Bears, if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play it. On Hakanpää, Derek. Berube clip 3.
Or in terms of Hakanpää, in terms of being ready for game action?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I can't really answer that question right now. We have to wait and see. We got a little bit of time yet, and see where he gets to and where he's at. He's got to be comfortable with getting in there and playing a game.
He's a project, guys.
I'm not at all confident this guy's going to be relevant for the Leafs this year.
He's just a project. And I think if you can handpick games during the regular season and just hope that he might be available in the playoffs is their best case scenario. But he cannot become an everyday player with that knee. It's managing the knee from here on in.
What do we think of them announcing this 2-year contract for him in the summer? Is that
Yeah, and then not being 2 years.
Well, I think it was first Steve Simmons that mentioned something
It was.
about it.
Bone on bone,
And
is
then
what he
I
said.
followed it up, because I had talked to someone in Dallas, and they're like, yeah, we like him, but there's nothing with his knee that would warrant us to think that we can depend on him.
over under 15 games for Hakanpää for the Leafs this year?
God, if it's not over, then it's
What's the
bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's just it's not good.
Well,
Brad
Back for
May.
further
Well,
analysis.
it's not good.
Yeah. All right.
So I think the goal is to try to get them 40 games. I think anything around 40 and keeping them healthy. And can you get a few games in there? And then if the knee starts swelling up, he needs a week off and then back and forth. But like he's a big guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could.
It's a monster.
He could add some serious depth to the Leafs if they can keep him healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well-
that seems like a pretty big if the way you're talking.
You
the
know,
way the coach was talking.
now,
so
outside of that, I do like, of course, we all love Tanev.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, too, he plays so darn hard that, how many games do you need out of him during the regular season to get him ready for the playoffs?
So what's he been playing lately?
Oliver Ekman-Larsson had a good year, Stanley Cup year for Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But, can you find out the ice times for Florida last year? Because I don't think they used him. Did they use him as a top four most nights?
at the start of the year, he was on their top pairing. But when the
So
playoffs.
last year in the regular season.
He's a 5 for them, is he not?
How far down
When
is
they
this guy?
when they won the Stanley
yeah,
Cup,
absolutely.
he was a 5.
So he played 18-24 per game in the regular season.
But the Leafs need him at a 4.
Yeah.
So the question is are the
in game
Leafs
7, he played
15-27 in playoffs.
In game 7, he played 16-37.
And he made how much last year? $2 million?
If that, what was
2.5?
Yeah.
And now as a $4 million player, he's got to be a top 4. So how many more minutes can you squeeze out of him without his level being dropped? And, more importantly, are you going to get Oliver Ekman-Larsson in Vancouver or in Florida?
Well, I think the fundamental difference there is Florida was a great structured team with good people ahead of him, so he wasn't taking the big matchups. And the second I see the way he's lined up right now beside McCabe, I don't love it, for that very reason. Like, I would love to see McCabe and Benoit, to me, were awesome.
Yeah.
I love them as a pair. I love how physical they were. Great sort of shutdown group. But I maybe they look at their third pair and say, we don't want Ekman-Larsson, Liljegren as a third pair. Timmins seems like no one even mentions this guy's name. Like, it's just assumed they're going to waive him, I guess. $1.1 million one-way contract.
I don't know if they are in that situation. Like, they got to alleviate some money somewhere. So Connor Dewar
he's going to play, I think, maybe tomorrow.
They might have to keep him.
He may have to be hurt for a little while longer.
Yeah, I don't know if that serves any purpose.
If he goes into the year on IR, he can't play for 10 games or 24 days.
Well, but like, I know we're getting off topic a little bit here, but like, there are other players that have stepped up, in my opinion, ahead of him.
Dewar.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Totally.
So Nick Robertson's ahead of him.
Yeah, for sure.
Holmberg's ahead of him.
I like Lawrence.
Lawrence is ahead of him. Lorenz?
Let's actually say it like Jennifer Lawrence. It's Lawrence.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lorenz.
Me too.
It's spelled that way. Should be that way.
All right.
I'm
good by you. I believe you.
One day on TV, they told me to say it like that.
Okay,
So,
there you go.
So, and I think he should start fourth line left wing.
Dewar.
No.
Oh.
Lawrence.
Yeah. I like Luke Fox had a good article on him. Did you happen to read that?
No.
He talked about how he's texted a picture of himself in a blue and white sweater to his dad, and like, this is his lifelong dream. He's wanted to be a Leaf.
So
as they say, he has the passion.
He is the best.
He's passionate.
I got Connor Dewar like below them.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a stretch to think that he might be not protected or on waivers.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So do you need to put Timmins' contract on waivers? That it might be a possibility.
I'd rather they do that than Dewar if you got to keep one of them. Like,
I don't think.
know, they just don't seem to have a vision for Timmins, and I can't see Berube being like, who I really like.
But
So I think I like Oliver Ekman-Larsson a lot more than I liked Klingberg.
Yeah.
But
Ekman-Larsson is long, and he can shoot it, and he can make plays. I mean, preseason, he's way up the ice sometimes. Let's face facts. The Leafs are like near the bottom of the league in offense from the back end. They could use something. He essentially is what a lot of people out there pretend Liljegren could be. This Liljegren thing is fascinating to me, too. He's making $3 million for this season and next. I don't know if you've watched them all in preseason, but
mid.
Perfect drop.
Looks a lot like Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah. He doesn't do anything special.
But he's the right-handed shot.
I mean, that is his superpower.
Yeah.
This guy has been eaten off shooting right.
Yes.
He got a great contract.
They got to think behind the scenes they might be working on something.
I got to think. It's not happening. Quit trying to make fetch happen. Quit trying to make
the one thing
Liljegren happen.
I did hear is potentially a Jake McCabe extension, maybe coming before the season starts. I heard talks were real good. Now,
I love playing guess the number.
Still maybe debatable on how much term, and maybe that still might fluctuate the AAV, but I'm thinking right now that he'd have no problem right now next season making $30 million over 6 years.
6 times 5, huh?
Yeah. 5.25. I think he'd get 5.25
Yeah.
on the open market. So the Leafs,
What's he make now?
4.
4?
They pay him 2.
Yeah. Oh, right, because it was like the double retention. Yeah.
So he's 30. He's flat.
Yeah.
Oh, he turns 31 in 10 days.
Just And
It's hard.
He plays hard, and to me, in the last little while, I see leadership qualities, and he's got some FU in him.
Yeah, God, it's nice to see. Who did he absolutely destroy? Was it Witherspoon?
He's gotten
He's taking some dumb penalties now I think about it too.
once in a while he lights somebody up, and it just adds such a great dynamic to the game.
They just
when he just
don't have enough guys who's like
the threat of
eyes-
violence.
Just who just go squirrely at times.
Why-
When you
yeah.
say the eyes roll back in their head,
Yeah, like slot machines
Yeah.
at Casino Rama.
big time wire cross guy.
Yeah.
Wires can cross, but
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
so
I
but you kind of glossed over Tanev, right? Where you said that he stays good, but I will say, having watched him in the preseason, like I don't think you can say how big of an upgrade he is over TJ Brody.
Oh, it's not even close.
Like
Not even close.
having him play on
Yes,
that top
totally
pairing on
agree.
the right side.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a grenade on his stick in the
yeah, he
defensive
can
zone.
handle the puck.
Listen,
He's made some plays where I'm like, oh, that is a breath of fresh air.
I would tell you probably in the first 2 or 3 or 4 months that behind the scenes, Tanev will present himself more of a captain than Auston Matthews.
I think so. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is
I
that-
think
is
it's
that beloved?
underrated. I think it's underrated.
Tanev's a grown up with kids and stuff.
I think it's still
He's an adult
underrated. Like what an influence that guy has had in a NHL dressing room in Calgary and Vancouver.
And when you've heard
Like,
that about people, go ahead.
Austin will, if he's smart, he'll really lean on this guy. I think that's where there's going to be tremendous value out of Tanev.
Yeah. I was going to say that they have had guys come in that you hear that about before, but it's usually old guys.
Oh.
It's usually veteran guys who
Tanev's
don't
not
have
exactly
it
a
anymore.
rookie.
Yeah, he's not a spring chicken
Well, guys,
exactly.
he
but-
signed a 4-year contract. This is as
6
spring
year.
as his chicken's going to
Oh,
get.
no,
Is it
no.
6
6?
year?
yeah, because they needed the AAV down.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
This is as spring as his chickens get.
But I think Leaf fans are going to fall in love with him quickly. That was just the breath of fresh air to have him on the top pair and just a real, like, say what you will about the contract and the age or whatever, but to have these next couple years of him.
He's what happens too when you get older though, he's got to be more selective on when he wants to block a shot with his teeth.
Or his hand in the preseason.
Or his hand,
guys like him
or his-
can't do that.
No, but the smart ones, as they get older, they have to survive.
Yeah.
But give me Riley Tanev, McCabe Benoit, Ekman Larson, Hakanpää in game 1.
Or Rafai.
Yeah.
Oh, game 1, maybe.
Yeah.
I like
He-
Rafai, though.
He's my 7th defenseman.
Rafai?
Oh,
I like
yeah.
Rafai too.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something there.
There's something there.
Yeah. And if they see it too, you see a right shot? God, someone else shoot right.
No, I don't think
No,
so.
he's not. But he punched out Slavkovsky pretty good in that preseason game. He's got a little bit of bite to him. I like Rafai.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That was a nice touch.
Well, we did another hour. We didn't talk about Shanny or the Rogers thing. So I guess we got
Hey,
something to talk
listen.
about tomorrow.
Oh,
Got the
is
whole
Ekman
week.
Larson going to get power play time? Is he going to take over Morgan's spot?
You know, the one thing that Paul Maurice told me was that he thinks he's as good as anybody when it comes to getting his shot through on a power play.
That would mean he'd have to shoot it, which would be amazing
Yeah.
from the point. It's not
And
something
he does.
Leafs
He does.
Well, I hope you like the same power play unit because that's what they're running
It'll
out there
start
today.
that way because I think Ruby doesn't want to make waves, but I bet you Ekman Larson's on
What about
there.
Pacioretty? How much power play time is he getting?
Nick Robertson. you mean. Read my article on
You are
Sportsnet.ca.
not a fan of 67, eh?
He scored 447 last year. What changed? Did he get younger?
You had a great offseason, buddy. Great summer.
We all did.
All
I was
right.
here. You guys had a great summer.
Don't go away. National Hour coming up. Jason Bukala turned into a real Kyper and Bourne star last year.
In studio.
In studio now. And he's had a busy summer too. We're going to get into that and so much more. National Hour coming up next. All right, let's get the National Hour going here on the Real Kyper and the Bourne Show. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, in studio. Special guest, Jason Bukala. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365, seen on Sportsnet. Also heard on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. Books, what's going on? So, we got 3 months off. Am I going to make you jealous right now?
Yeah, please
3
do.
months off
Yeah.
as still a lot of scouting in your blood.
Yes.
Didn't really change this summer for you, did it?
There's no off season anymore, fellas. Doesn't seem like there is. Like, I mean, you come out of the draft, you get into free agency, you go to development camps. You know, I obviously didn't do that, but you know, Holinka, Gretzky, Kip, you know, I over coffee there earlier. You know,
Yeah.
like, you go to Edmonton in August for the Holinka, which is the official start of the amateur scouting calendar for next year's draft, and then before you know it, here we are again. You know, and training camps, rookie games, rookie tournaments, all that kind of stuff. So it's changed a lot. Like since I started in Nashville in the early 2000s, you know, mid 2006, whatever it was, it's changed a lot. We used to have an off season, you know, a couple months in there, play golf, you know, go to the cottage. Not so much anymore.
So the Holinka is kind of where it all starts, is it? And so when you go to these sort of events, is it all the same people? Like, you know, you've been a part of the scouting community now for a long time. Is it kind of like the first day of school?
It kind of is, yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah. And, you know, you can see some of the guys who've been kind to their bodies for the first month of the off season, and other guys who haven't,
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, it's that right there. Like, there's a lot of GMs that are there. Everybody, it's almost like everybody kind of wants to reconvene a little bit too. I have to say this. I love going to Edmonton to scout hockey. Edmonton's a Canadian city. I get it. But Bratislava usually hosts that every other year there in Slovak. And that's a fantastic area of the world if you ever get a chance.
Yeah.
So it's going back there next year. I'm already looking forward to it a little bit more than I did Edmonton. In
There you go.
August.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We're talking to Jason Bukala, former NHL scout, Sportsnet hockey analyst, and the Pro Hockey Group. So a lot of discussion, Books, over training camp, seeing guys get hurt, stars on the ice against minor leaguers, some getting hurt. So, like, as a former scout, like, where was the value of you watching or assessing a preseason game when you watch nothing on the line yet? You know, sometimes you could have a group of rookies, which we've seen on occasion already, like show up, play hard, and then the group that you think that should run over a team 11-0 with veterans end up losing. Attention to detail. Like, how much stock did you as a scout put into watching these games?
It was literally all over the map. I have to be truthful about it. So we would sometimes, well, first of all, as you guys know, some veteran guys, they want to get so many reps in, right? And it's not that they're going to be full bore necessarily, which I think is actually a dangerous thing. Like when you're not playing the game to your full capacity, that's when silly things seem to happen, or, you know, injury wise. But some guys wanted to get so many reps in. I can recall when I was working for Dale Talon in Florida, and there was a Detroit Red Wing who was going to go on the waiver wire. But we had some interest in him. It was, I don't mind telling you, it was Jacob Kindle, the defenseman, okay?
Yep.
It's a long time ago. And, you know, so I went down to Chicago. I live in London. Dale says, can you go to Chicago tonight and see this, you know, Kindle, because they're going to put him on waivers. Something's going to happen. And do you think he's worth a late round pick? So there's where you're conflicted, right? Because you go to a game and it's half veteran guys, 8 guys, right? Yeah, it's full in Chicago, but it doesn't matter. And Kindle's a defenseman for Detroit. So am I going to get him under duress the way I would normally get at that time with the Chicago Blackhawks? Obviously not. So it's delicate. Like, you got to, you know, for veteran guys or semi-veteran guys, or even guys that are kind of getting into that 22, 23-year-old mold, you know, like Robertson here, for example, I guarantee teams have been heavily scouting Robertson through the preseason. Guarantee it. So I don't know. It's, I will say this. I'm very concerned about the amount of injuries that are taking place in preseason. You know, I think that we're almost getting to the stage we have to be like the National Football League and, you know, play a game a week, and, you know, you're only rolling your good guys out there once in a while.
Right. Yeah, you could save some injuries just by having Arber Xhekaj play less. But just one suggestion might be one of the ideas. So we're going to we want to go across Canada a little bit and ask you about some.
Be potentially a top 10 pick. You know, he got draftitis, as I like to call it. You know, some guys just kind of, they just don't, they're not the best version of themselves for whatever reason, sometimes in their draft year. And it's been a little bit of a slow burn. His wheels, he's part of the Bo Horvat trade. Okay. So the Islanders draft him in the second round. He's what's left over in that Horvat trade to the Island from Vancouver. And, you know, it's been a slow burn for him to get to. He had a real nice year last year in Abbotsford. I think it was right around point a game. his wheels have been average plus, okay? Now what he's done is I would say he's improved maybe 10% somehow, some way. Maybe it's training, biomechanics, his fitness is different, better, whatever the case may be. He's getting from A to B quicker, especially in small areas. But you know what he really does, guys? He's got a B game now. Okay, so it's not going to be at the bottom of the lineup where you need him to score 12 or 15. That would be a bonus, right? But the fact of the matter is that he's extending plays. He's leaning on people, hash marks down, hard to play against, those types of things. That, obviously, with the way that they're trying to play there, especially looking for that type of breed in the bottom of their lineup, that's good for the Canucks. And, if he pairs up, let's say he's on the road, and he pairs up against a second pairing D, okay? And all he does is bodies him 3 times, makes life miserable on him. And then the next time that D comes out, that D's run up against, one of the Canucks' top 6 units. He's a lesser version of himself now, isn't he? So that's the role I see him playing there. He's been very impressive.
DeBrusk with Pettersson. You like it? You like that chemistry, that potential for chemistry?
Yeah, interesting. Time will tell, I guess. I'm on the fence with it. I don't know what DeBrusk's ceiling is necessarily offensively. Like, could he be better than what he was in Boston? Like, he always gave me the impression that he should be, a 65-point guy, almost all the time. Like, when he's playing at the top of his game. For whatever reason, if you look at his statistics in Boston, it was kind of like, and there was some noise there too at one point. Remember, he kind of wanted out of there and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting. I see the reason why they're doing it. Long-term contract, the new guy on the scene. He's got to play top 6. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking for him, though, definitely to be, north of 60 points there and complement Pettersson in a better way.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, how do you feel about quick judgments on drafts or looking at like, oh, they passed over this guy when they could have had this guy? Because right now, sitting here this morning, Montreal didn't take Matvei Michkov, and he's looking pretty good in Philly, and Reinbacher gets hurt early, and it looks like it's already decided, right? Like, oh, they should have taken Michkov. But how do you feel when you hear people like pundits talking about what they should have done in a draft this shortly after it?
I don't like it at all. It drives me crazy, you know, for the fraternity especially, because they've been out there and they worked so hard to – listen, there's a plan in place. Like Reinbacher that year, 2 things. Michkov wanted to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, he wanted to be a Philadelphia Flyer. It was, it kind of came out through, you heard a lot of noise, but through the periphery, it was like, he really wants to be in Philadelphia, or at least in that area, let's call it the metro, the New York region. Let's just call it for that, for argument's sake. And so teams were already weary of, is he going to come? So if you draft him ahead of the 8th slot, he went 8th, right? If you draft him ahead of that, is he going to come? What are we going to get ourselves into here? And don't forget, like hindsight being what it is, the hockey guys have talked on 2 teams relatively well here, because Cutter Gauthier didn't want to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Michkov wants to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Pretty good, right? He swapped that out. Yeah. Demidov ends up a Montreal Canadian this year. For me, he was the 2nd best player in the draft. Okay. Really? Yeah, absolutely. 2nd best player in the draft. And he ends up a Montreal Canadian this year. So to your Reinbacher point, it's funny how it all comes full circle. Reinbacher's a hell of a player. That was a freak injury. Montreal, knock on wood, like Kirby Dach last year, freak injuries. And but he's a hell of a player and very smart, very talented, can quarterback a second unit power play in time, but big bodied, who moves very well. And it's just going to take time with guys like that. So yeah, I don't love it when it's judged too early.
Takes some time, eh?
Yeah. Kind of conversations is it today when it comes to like 2 players being close and then one maybe from Russia, and as a scouting staff or management staff, you're like, don't want to deal with Russia, don't want to deal with releases, don't want to negotiate prices, don't want that headache. Right? Is that more prevalent?
I don't think
ever?
it's the same for every team, and I'll present it this way. Actually, 3 different ways. I still think that there's some teams in the league who are shying away from drafting a Russian, period. And I'm not even just talking for hockey reasons. I'm talking geopolitical. The owner has a slant on something. I think that actually does exist in the league. The second thing that I will say is that the risk, is the reward. Are we going to get the player? How are we going to manage the asset? That's absolutely a concern. But the third thing I would say is this. I'm not so sure that the U.S. National Team Development Player Program and their players, their high-end guys that are coming out of there, aren't becoming, I think the Russians are getting less risky, and the U.S. National Team Development players who are really, really good going to college are getting more risky to a degree. It seems like a couple. Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. Like Gauthier decided he didn't, want to become a Philadelphia Flyer for whatever the reason is. Rucker McGroarty. You could say the Winnipeg thing, but like Kip, back in the day, the NHL, it's like the Augusta National, right? If you're asked to be a member of the club, just go play the game.
Anywhere.
Go play the game. There's 32 teams in the best league in the world. I don't care where it is. I know for my kid, if he's going to be a hockey player, you don't get to pick where you play in the best league in the world. So if that happened, I don't know. No one's come out and told me that specifically.
But we've had this discussion before. Like they're like much different rules from drafting in the CHL or the NCAA.
Absolutely.
Like all of a sudden these NCAA kids are going, well, wait a second, I can be a free agent a lot faster now, and why wouldn't I exercise that muscle?
Oh, and I'll tell you, you don't want a high-end college player that you've selected. I don't care where you've selected him, because let's just say he's a third rounder, but he hits. Like, he's really good. Well, look at us with Florida back in the day, Zach Hyman. He's a 6th round pick to us in Florida, okay? His first 3 years at the University of Michigan, he scores like 19 goals in 3 years. His last year, he looked like he looks today in the National Hockey League. He's in his senior year. So he's walking us to water saying he's going to sign with the Florida Panthers until he doesn't, right? So if you have a talent at the college level and he's getting into year 3 and he isn't signing with you, I'm looking at my general manager and saying, we better manage this very, very closely, because I don't think he's coming. Let's not put all the control in his, notebook, if you will. Let's take back some control there.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot with this, but like things are really changing with development leagues and what players can do. I mean, what are your thoughts? I know it's a pretty general question, but you look at these guys who could play major junior and then play college. Yeah. Is that good for our game, or?
Oh,
I know that's a really broad question. Is there something in there in particular that stands out to you that will change?
And has anything changed, just to add, JB, has anything changed between the last time we had a conversation with where the NCAA is and these players now? Like, is it going to get challenged now if a CHL player wants to end his amateur career with a school down in the States?
We're starting to see it, aren't we? Forget the name of the player committed to Arizona State, right? I think in the perfect world, for everything to align the way that the NHL wants it to align, and I'm talking about development fees, I'm talking about timelines, right now, if we draft a European, he's on the clock for 4 years of development, right? If we draft a CHL kid, 2 years, and you got to make a decision on him. An NCAA player, we're talking about that being in flux, right? Technically, 2 years, he could come out after 1 year, and that happens, obviously. I think ideally the league would like the CBA and all of this change in NCAA hockey to kind of hit the ground running at the same time, because it's going to be a CBA notation, isn't it? What's the development fee? If a kid doesn't come, do we get a compensatory pick out of that? There's always going to be all these moving parts. Do I think it's good? I think that anytime that you can offer up the opportunity for any kid, they all develop on their own timelines, right? So I think that anytime you can open up the landscape to as much competition as possible to get the best product, I think that's good for the game. How it plays out in the long run, not so sure, because the USHL is a juggernaut in the States. It's a big business. There's a lot of great centers there. Is there going to be less USHL players going to play in big time schools? But having said that, if you go to like a Lake State, let's just say up in Sault Ste. Marie, they will benefit from the older CHL player.
Sure. Did you have a chance to play in the USHL? It was a nothing burger for you?
Yeah, when I played in the BCHL, the USHL was just starting, and it was kind of a laugher. It was kind of like one of those 4-letter SPHL or whatever below that, whatever league it was. It wasn't what it is now, which is
more players are being drafted out of this USHL than the
Big
CHL
business.
now?
Big business. Well, no. Not out of the CHL, not comparatively. Here's how they position it, though. They position a college player who played in Dubuque as a USHL player still, which is like you and I saying that Easton Cowan played for the Kamoka Kings in Junior B, and he's a Kamoka King. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? So you can spin it any way you want.
Right. So will NIL have any input on this? The ability for kids to go to college and get paid if you're a star versus going the CHL route?
That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, it's hockey.
And where does it land? So that's a great point. So if you're a high-end guy, let's just be crazy here for a second. Think back to Connor McDavid's draft year.
Yeah.
Instead of him playing for the Erie Otters, okay,
Yeah.
he's at the University of Michigan. And guess what? He's making $1 million on nil, right? You know what I mean?
Still developing and getting paid in the process.
Yeah, and playing 42 games or whatever he's playing, right? Twice on the weekends or whatever. Maybe not necessarily the best idea for the player, but you can certainly see the strategy from where you sit, right?
It's a negotiating ploy.
It's going to be, so I'm fascinated to see where that goes, because right now in the OHL, I remember back to my Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound days a long time ago. We always had those players who were like, you'd be looking at a Toronto Marley kid, right? No, I'm going to go play college hockey. I'm going to go play in Michigan. And then, we don't draft him in Sault Ste. Marie. And then we show up in Kitchener on a Friday night and he's playing for the Kitchener Rangers. You know what I mean? So there's going to be some tactics involved.
Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, pick your poison on.
Not a lot of
where you
room for
wanna go.
prospects in Edmonton. Obviously what happened in the offseason with the offer sheet situation, it doesn't move the needle much in terms of prospects entering into that equation there. Savoy trade from Buffalo was curious for me to go to Edmonton. He needs time in the American League to ply his trade for the type of player he is. Edmonton is going to be a juggernaut in my estimation.
Were you surprised that Ego didn't take over the decision to somehow keep the Edmonton players out of St. Louis? Because that's what usually happens. How dare you? You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're not taking my players.
Money. It's money. It's salary cap exposure.
Shouldn't we see more of this then?
Yeah,
'Cause there's a
absolutely.
ton of
Well,
teams
if you want to look at how the St. Louis Blues position it, like how Army position it, this is business. I do this to my mother, I think is what his quote was, right? Absolutely, you should see it. If you've got the flexibility, like why would you have to wait? I'll give you an example. I'm Utah and I come from Arizona. All of a sudden I have an owner who's willing to spend to the cap, okay? Where we've been, let's be honest, a lot of bad contracts have been landing there for several years. Yeah. So now it's the exact flip side of that. And if you've got the room, why wouldn't you? I want to get good sooner than later, for a couple of reasons.
Absolutely.
A, because we want our city to embrace us, but also those guys who've been going through the tough days with us in Arizona, let's reward them with as good a team. So, yeah, I think that, it should be out there, but it's, as long as there's those teams that are spending, a lot of money at the top of their lineups, especially to get to the ceiling of the cap or close to LT to start years like that, it's going to be, they're going to expose themselves even more.
Yeah. While we're trying to go around Canada and touch on each team, Kip and I did a preseason game. Actually, I think you missed the first one where Carter Yakimchuk, the Ottawa Senators' young D-man, split the D, scores a OT winner. Tell me about this kid. Scored 30 in junior. Yeah. How soon can he be an impactful NHLer?
So the interesting thing about Carter, he's a late birthday, and there's an example of a kid who needed an extra year to grow into his frame. He got tall and whatever. I love his mechanics on straight lines. I think there's no issues there at all. You saw that in that exhibition.
Yeah,
he split the D and went in and whatever. He's got the offensive brain. He can shoot it from distance, beat goalies from distance too. Weak side on the power play, for example. He's got bite too. 120 PIMs in the dub. Okay, and the dub might not be the dub of 25 years ago, but 120 PIMs when you play 25 minutes a night, that's a lot of time in the box, right? So I think that he's got an A game and a B game. I think he's going to be able to do a lot of different things. It's just going to come down to timing, getting that small area, guys are quicker, stronger, they body up a little bit differently. So it'll take time. But I think he gets 9 games for sure, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I really do believe that. Their preseason tournament in Buffalo was a tire fire. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. Ottawa was 0-3. They scored 4 and allowed 17. And people were coming out of there looking at their prospect pool saying, Yeah. But Yakimchuk's gone to a different level since he arrived with the big guys.
So I am coming into this season thinking that this season may kind of mirror last season's in terms of where we see the pecking order going into the playoffs again. But there's so much more pressure on the likes of the team that you just mentioned, Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit. I'm still kind of not sure where Montreal is, if it's just another year that they miss the playoffs and they just get the Okay. All right. So, but there's a ton of pressure on Adams, I think, Stevie Yzerman, to get this team over the hump. And, with Ottawa, like, Andlauer just spent another $100 million, I think, to take a percentage of the team. He's got to get into the playoffs. Like,
Yeah, they lost money last year.
where do you see one team stepping up or no? I mean, they can knock on the door, but Montreal and Ottawa, they were like 18 points out of a playoff spot. That's not like
Sens fans like the Sens this year. They think they're getting in.
That's not,
Elliott picked them.
That's not just not missing. That's
missing.
That's missing.
That's 9 games behind in the American League East. Let's be honest. So that's not just missing, right?
Can Ottawa make up that many points?
I am hoping they do. I really, because for the good of the franchise and all the good news about the new owner and different things, and obviously, hopefully a shovel going in the ground at some point for the new rink on the flats, all these positive things behind the scenes. I just don't know, other than Washington, who falls out. That's where I'm struggling. So they have to get off to a good start, guys. Their starts like that. We always talk about Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. If you're here, for me, teams like Ottawa, Buffalo actually generally gets off to good starts, and then something goes terribly wrong. Right. But like Ottawa's got to be 7-3 out of the gates. Like they can't be chasing points.
They're always chasing, and then they get hot at the end of the year and ruin their draft pick. So
yeah. It's just that it's backwards. You got to figure it out. Hopefully they're a year older, a year better prepared. They got Allmark and goal. Comes up with some big saves. I'd run that guy out for every game, like to start the first 10 or so. I got to do what I got to do here. I will say this though about Linus Allmark. As great as his stats were and how good he's been, if you want to watch tape on Linus Allmark, there's some nights that he looks like Joey, your next door neighbor, playing road hockey. Like he's diving his chest out of pucks. It looks very unorthodox. It works in Boston because you might only have to make one save. Right. When you're with a developing group, you might have to regroup and make a second save. And we'll see how that goes.
Just staying on the goaltending, I'd love your thoughts on the Boston Bruins handling Jeremy Swayman and whether or not they should have found a way to hold on to Allmark just in case they had some issues. Where do you see Swayman by December 1st?
I see him in Boston. I do see him in Boston. I'm fascinated though by the process that has occurred here. I don't understand when you're trading Allmark and you have to re-sign the other guy. I don't know where, like, did we not talk to each other in the lead up to some of these transactions? Like, did we not get a feel for each other of where we're going with things? Like, you would have thought, in my mind, that would have happened already.
Have a deal in place before you trade Allmark.
Yeah, you have to have some sort of a plan in place, and then all this other noise that follows it after that. I think he ends up in Boston, and I think it's in spite of upper management. I think that whenever you take a player to arbitration and they hear all the bad things about themselves from the other side, when they've been given the best version of themselves, that's a tough. Like these guys, they don't like to hear that. Nobody does, but a lot of pro athletes have been the best of the best every step of the way. Mm-hmm. They haven't got a lot of negatives, so they don't like to hear that, especially. I'm fascinated by it. I'm disappointed by it. I think he comes back for the good of the group. I think there's a culture there, and he's gonna at the end of the day be in for that. 8 years though, that's gonna be curious to me.
It's a lot of years.
But there's a bit of a precedent now with general managers hedging here on second contracts, and Slafkovsky, of course, struggled out of the gate, found his footing, boom, 8-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Robert Thomas in St. Louis.
I get Swayman's 25 and he's only played like 130 games or whatever, but like pretty good goalie, and he's in the ballpark of all the rest of them making 8.5 or 9. Like,
here's
what's the big deal here?
For me, from the management side, 20 games. Because Connor Hellebuck's going to roll out and play. So when you start throwing out numbers that I should be making what Vasilevsky makes or what Hellebuck makes and all this, okay? And they're rolling out there for...
And it's not apples to apples. It's percentages of what the cap's available. The cap could be $100 million tomorrow if they just decide to really use real revenue coming in. But they've artificially slowed it down. Yeah. And the thing can boom to $100 million like that very soon, And that's new money coming into the system to get the same percentage that you had back then. It's not because it's Vasilevsky's number. You deserve more than Vasilevsky. It's like today's money.
Yeah, so that's where it's at, though. Like, it goes whatever Vasilevsky was at 9.5 compared to the percentage at that time. Now you start to back it out, and if the percentage right now of the athlete is saying that I deserve this money, and I take, well, here's something that's interesting. Yeah. Didn't the league just come out and say that next year it might go to 92.5? Yeah. Okay, so 92.5, and he isn't signed. So now he knows that at 8, if that's what the number is, 8 million, this is my percentage at 8. But I was negotiating previously to that on the old number 88. At 88, right? So now I should be 8.5, 8.75, whatever the case may be, right? 9, let's say 9 million. Okay. And it'll still age well if he hits. That'll still age well.
It will.
Right? But I mean, that whole process is fascinating. Maybe this is going to be a new precedent. You know, this holdout guy who is going to listen at Arb and all that other, and then he's just going to wait for that salary cap number to come up before he signs a new deal. I'm with you, Kyper. I mean, it is in relation to the percentage, but that's where I come back to the games played, though, too. I have to factor that in because it's not like the Grant Fuhr days when Mike Keenan rolls them out for 75 games, okay? Ones in the league now are between 60 and 64 games. I think, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I bet you that's pretty high, right? Yeah. So when you're in your 40s, you know, you haven't shown me yet. You know, it's like in Toronto here. Like, things could go really well, but both these guys, and you got, you know, whatever happens, Murray, whatever, but we're talking guys that play like 30 games a year.
Right.
Okay, so that matters to me in the process outside of the percentages.
Yeah, makes sense to me. As you say, everyone wants the like Jack Hughes thing where you've given a guy 8 times, what he's got, 8 times 8 was his contract or something. Now he's going to make $8 million a year, scoring 130 points. Everyone's trying to do that. And I don't blame guys for locking up the value, but I think more NHLers should look at the NBA thing. And if they believe in themselves, sign for 3 years, 4 years. You know, like Auston Matthews, basically the only guy who does it right now.
But you got to have a team willing to say, we'll accept you at that number, and everyone else is jamming 8 years. They're not dumb. Like, I want to know what I want to know for the 8 years you're locked in. If it's going to come lower.
Unless it's Matthews, though, unless it's one of the top 5 guys in the league, 8 years is a long time to commit to someone. Well, like, I'm okay with committing to 5 years as a team. Let's make sure we like you too.
You guys not think it's situational, though? So New Jersey's in a cycle when they sign them to that deal, right? Which it's kind of like Quinn Hughes even. Like, when you sign these guys to deals, depending on where your team's in the cycle, that number of 8, you know, they're putting you up against the other guys on your roster and all that kind of things and how they're building out their team. Now the kid, the player says, yeah, I'm satisfied with that number. I'll sign for 8. Unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, where Matthews was afforded, like the tea leaves look like we are going to get pretty good. On paper, like regular season good at the very least, right? So now it's like, I'll bet on myself a little bit differently because, you know, it works the way our team is here. Right. They're going to do it. The Leafs are, because they just are. Yeah. They're going to do it. They're not going to risk, you know, him not playing. So I think it depends on the team, depends on the situation. And you know what? It depends also on location. You can never forget that, right? Like, you know, there's some teams in this league that the league might not want to hear it, but there's some tax havens in this league, and that matters too. To some of those players in those markets, they'll leave a schmill on the table. Alexander Barkov makes 10. Is that going to age well? Like, obviously it's going to age well, right? Okay,
but it's like 12 in Toronto or New York.
At least.
I was speaking to an agent. He said that if he played in New York, I don't know what the cost of living was when you played for the Rangers, but he said if that guy was playing in New York, it was $13 million a year that Barkov would have to get paid in New York.
Right. To keep the same amount of money.
To keep the same amount.
I got traded in
factoring in cost of living.
I got traded in 1993 from Hartford to New York. 1993, my rent
went up.
My rent in Hartford was $235, and then I go, "Hey, Mess, how much do you need to rent in New York City?" He says, you can find a decent place for like $3,000. I'm like, I turned into Cliff Clavin, talking to girls. How much?
That's brutal.
You're looking for a roommate at that point.
Yeah.
What if I
Did you have a roommate in New York?
7 of them.
Come on.
Just to bring the rent down.
Yeah, smart.
All right. Well, listen, great stuff as always, man.
Thanks for
really
having me.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, always nice to have a head scout tell you the way it is.
Thanks
Don't
for
be a
having me.
stranger around here, man. Okay.
Well, I was only in here to see Deb Berman.
Yeah.
You know, like
Keep you looking sharp.
the great Deb and
Yeah.
Hillary. You know, I didn't see her today, but she would normally make me look even better. But
Well,
that's
you
the only
look
reason I was
wonderful.
here. But I'm glad to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it.
Take a quick break, and
Yes.
we'll trade in Books for Sammy. Is that even up, or is that like
We're gonna need
need a lot
futures or
more
something with that.
futures, cash? Can you still get cash in a deal? More Real Kipper and Bourne after the break. Coming down the stretch here on day 2, the Real Kipper and Bourne show. This hour, Real Kipper and Bourne, brought to you by Bet365. We've got NHL notes, but before that, Sammy, welcome back to the program. Little game time.
After Books there, I'm like, he should just be the third guy.
Books produced.
He's really good.
Yeah,
Really good.
yeah. He can chew the fat, man.
Oh, yeah.
He could talk.
Welcome here anytime.
Gift of gab.
He could talk a pit bull off a meat wagon.
I believe he could.
It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, what I'm doing today, another big picture one. The Hart Trophy favorites. You can probably guess who the number one favorite is, I would imagine. His name's Connor McDavid.
David McConnor.
Pretty good. Plus 150 to be the MVP, the Hart Trophy winner in the NHL.
You're basically betting, does he get hurt or not?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
He's healthy, he wins.
Or, I mean, he could have won it last year, too. Probably should have won it last year. I mean, it's a narrative thing. It's like LeBron. LeBron could have been the MVP every single year, but there's writers and people who watch the league want to have someone different.
Want to make sure everyone gets one who's good.
The next favorite is Nathan McKinnon at 6-1 plus 600. Auston Matthews at plus 850. Jack Hughes plus 1100. Nikita Kucherov plus 1800. And the last one I'll say is Draisaitl at plus 2000, 20 to 1.
You
Any
know
of
what,
those jump out
we're
to you?
missing? We're missing one there. Cale Makar.
But
Do you want me to look up his number for you?
It's just
Excuse me, guys.
very rare that a defenseman can win this
It
trophy.
is rare,
over
but-
historically
It is.
speaking.
But I believe that he's
The last one was
better
Pronger?
enough.
Pronger?
His last one, Pronger?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Doughty? No.
No.
Yep.
I skated with Pronger
You did?
a month ago.
You survive?
Like, so it was a charity event in Brampton, and like he's like hasn't skated in 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
7 years.
I'm
Seven
getting up
up
there.
there.
I got
Years.
about 3 or
He
something.
came out. I don't even know if he borrowed equipment or whatever, but like, and he kind of still intimidated me out there.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Like I knew maybe I was going to get a stick over the head at any time.
Well, I don't think Cale Makar would do that. But
Cale
I do think
Makar-
that Cale Makar,
Is plus 2,500, 25 to 1 for Cale Makar.
he's just that age where he could have like a 95-point season. And with the rest of his game, he's different enough to me that he's worth a flyer.
Did you mention Kucherov?
I didn't mention
Well,
Kucherov.
16, I think.
Oh,
Where
no,
is
did
he?
I say? No, I did say.
You did.
He's
Where?
plus 1,800. 18 to 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. He
He
Don't-
sneaks
don't-
in the 140-point
oh
season.
my God.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He is nasty.
He's so good.
Yeah, he really is. And he's just, I mean, the All-Star game performance last year was all-time stuff in that skills thing where he
That's
stopped
funny. Is
trying.
like, I like him. I like Kucherov, but I am a little bit. His actions sometimes do not please me.
And just to confirm, the last defenseman to win the Hart Trophy was indeed Chris Pronger in the year 2000. So it's been a long time since a defenseman has won the Hart Trophy. So there you go. That was Game Time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
All right. How much did you catch out of that nastiness against the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators?
I actually- I
And
watched
for the
that.
second consecutive game there, that Xhekaj is
my
like,
God.
can somebody remind him that like it hasn't really started? You don't have like he was reactive to that hit. Like there's
Yeah.
no
You
question
think that was
that
tied to the Greg hit?
Yeah, 100%. That one had message sending
Mm-hmm.
written all over it for me.
So I am 100% sure the league looked at that play and said that's a stick that hits Stützle, right? It's his own stick. He hits Stützle's gloves, and he hits himself with the
Is that
stick, and that's
enough? Is that enough to say?
no. They should still suspend him.
I mean,
It's like if you drive recklessly all over the road and someone swerves to get out of the way and crashes, it's like you still caused the crash. I definitely feel like that's they just need to do, it's like Rempe. It was like, someone just pour cold water on this guy and just like, he's going to hurt someone playing like this. It's preseason.
I mean, yeah, everybody's, whoa, it was the stick that cut him. That didn't excuse the flying elbow when the puck was on the
at him.
the puck was on the sideboards.
Yes.
So I don't know. Like, to me, I'll get your thoughts on this, but you can't have it if you're the NHL. I'm not necessarily, this is my youth. This is what I grew up watching. That hit happened every night when I used to watch hockey when I was a kid. And in my 20s and my teens, that was all the time.
Yeah.
But like, the NHL wants to not have that anymore, right? Like, they want to get rid of that. But like, if they want
protect your stars,
I don't. That's what I mean.
Do they know? They don't.
The NFL protects their
yes.
quarterbacks because they're the stars. Can we not protect Timmy Stu?
The perception is they may want it out of the game, but they just prove they don't.
They don't care. He went flying through the middle of the ice, flying elbow on a star player in a meaningless preseason game, and he didn't even get a fine.
You know what kills me?
After beating a guy mercilessly the game before.
You know what kills me is, I think at the start of the year, you'd like to send the message to the rest of the league. We're watching. What's the best behavior here, boys?
But to me, it's a no-brainer there.
And the next two games, they play Ottawa and Toronto again.
Listen,
who wants him in those games?
And if you really want to send him, like, nothing would hurt a player worse than missing your season opening game. That's the game you want. You know, like that.
You
that
can even
one
let him play
stings.
that though.
That one stings.
Just saying you can't play in the next two preseasons.
Exactly.
You know what's the harm?
No. Bigger message.
Into the regular season.
He shouldn't be in the lineup Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, he is
So you think
operating dangerously out there.
So 3-game suspension, 2 preseason, 1 preseason. What you think?
The
The preseason games are worth half a game each.
But then he gets to play in the 2 preseason games against the rivals and then play opening night.
It's not. Listen, I don't care about preseason.
Neither do I.
I don't even.
But he does, obviously.
Hey, we
he
can have
can't play in
melees
those.
in those games
He can't
now.
play in those, and he can't play in the opening game.
Okay.
He wants.
Yeah, I don't even count those.
But like now, is Ryan Reeves gonna fight him next game? Is who is it on Ottawa? Who's it gonna be? Someone gonna go fight McEwen or someone? Like, are we gonna have a hullabaloo?
Like, I'm watching it last
Johnny
night,
Brook?
and then I'm thinking he's gonna get a game, and there's nothing there, and I'm like, the whole hockey world's confused right now. Like, I don't know what's suspendable and what's not.
Well, these guys will say it's letter of the law. They'll say he did not hit him in the head. What do you want me to suspend him for? He didn't hit his head. He hit his hands, and then the guy hit himself.
You can't.
It's attempted murder.
You can't suspend for intent. You can
Right.
suspend for results.
What happened?
Is that what it is?
That's absolutely. If we had them on the show right now, they would say he didn't hit him in the head. What do you want me to do?
And Ridley Gregg was pretty greasy too.
It was greasy. Very greasy hit.
It was not as greasy, but
What
in
is
the same
later?
conversation.
What did Morgan end up getting? 5
6.
games?
Yeah,
6.
5.
6 reduced.
Was it?
I think it was 5.
Okay.
Maybe 6 reduced to 5.
I think it was reduced 5 to 4 or 6 to 5. I can't remember, but it was, and that wasn't as vicious of a beating than what Xhekaj did.
That one is
last
pretty
week.
clearly a suspension.
Right?
It's like when you throw 3 or 4 punches at an unwilling combatant, that's one thing. But the 7th or 8th is like, all right.
So you guys think the punching was worse than the hit last night?
I just think that technically it's hard to suspend a guy
Listen,
when the contact wasn't there.
When I saw that clip and the broadcast, Mike John's like, oh my, like it was
Immediately knew he's out of the game.
that to me. I was like, oh my God, he's definitely getting suspended. Like I was more sure of him getting suspended for
For sure.
that than the punching.
But they got out the microscope and went, technically.
Listen, I'm as old school as anyone, but you have to, you gotta kind of square up and give a guy a chance to say, okay, I'm fighting you now.
Yeah.
And that one just escalated to, I'm gonna Bertuzzi you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we can't have that today.
Yeah.
No.
So either way, he'll be emboldened, I think. I think Arber Xhekaj is going to be Matt Rempe, not even light, just another Matt Rempe.
But yeah, I think, but he's been in the league longer, I guess. And
Marginally.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel like he was.
Just square up with a guy. That's all. I mean, you
You want
wanted to
him
fight him.
with Pare.
To square up. That's all. Just give him a chance to at least say, I'm coming after you. You took out our $8.5 million score here. You know it's coming. Just give him a chance to say yes or no.
Can I say something that he wasn't exactly quick to get the flippers off with Brady Tkachuk breathing down his throat? So
Xhekaj?
yeah,
Yeah.
didn't have much of a chance, but he didn't exactly throw him off quickly. So interesting.
This kind
Listen,
of
I
set up
love
for
this,
more
though.
must-watch TV
Well,
next Wednesday.
I mean, we're all the same. I love this. Like, I love hockey like this.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard for the NHL to try to sell that it's not this all the time with they're like, we care about the players' health and all this stuff. And then it's just in preseason games, guys are throwing flying
Hey, you know
elbows
what?
and nothing happens.
Maybe they've decided they want more of this. And
Good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just make the statement.
In
In a way, they have made the statement.
They have. They absolutely have. You know who else made a statement? The Wild owner.
Okay. I like this one.
Okay, would you like me to read what the owner said?
Please do.
Okay. Craig Leopold. We plan to resign him.
Who's that?
The Wild.
Yeah, but
Kaprizov.
Kirill
Sorry.
Kaprizov.
We plan to resign him. I will tell you, nobody will offer him more money than us or longer years. So all we have to do is prove to him that we want to win.
I would love to hear my boss say that. No one is going to pay this guy more than us in terms of years and dollars.
What does Guerin think of those words?
You're the GM of the team going, not helping, man.
They just are still kind of figuring it out with the money lost on buyouts to Parisi and Suter.
How much longer are they doing that?
No, this is it. One more year.
I think, this is the
last year.
But
this
you
year?
know what? This kind of reminds me of, you were critical today of, I believe, Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins was asked, or is it Shapiro was asked if Guerrero is a generational player.
Listen, I don't want to do this.
Okay.
I don't want to talk.
But they were asked, is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a generational player? And instead of just saying yes, they waffled on it. This is the Wild's owner saying, stay. We want you. We love you. We'll pay you. Unequivocal.
Yeah.
It's not really what it used to be, because a guy like that's going to get 8 years or 7 or 8. If he walks and joins another team, obviously he may not get an 8th year. But generally speaking, everybody's within the ballpark of a $1.5 million for most of these guys. Of course, Connor in a year could ask, or is it 2 years?
Buddy, Connor's not taking in more than Leon.
Exactly. But he could ask for all of 20% of the cap, and you'd have to just say, yes, may I have another, if he insisted. But the rest of them are in a ballpark. It's not
Kaprizov's 27. He has a 108-point season. He's going to be worth 13, 12
and a half.
Here it is.
Like, it's so funny now. You talk about the baseball and the basketball, and they're like at 400 million.
Buddy,
and now it's like, and it's 2024 and Swayman's asking for 500,000 more. And like, oh my God.
This greedy
the nerve
son
of the
of
guy.
Joel Embiid got literally $300 million.
I had to ask Sam the other day. Like, I watched the NBA a little bit, and I was like, "Who's this guy that just got paid $220 million?" Shingun,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, he's famous.
Like, can you have the
poor man's Jokic.
like, I'm taking 330. You come to me at 328. We got no deal.
Yeah. Who are you bidding against?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you said the Connor thing. Speaking of pumping your own tires, I'll pump your tires for you. For a couple of years, you've been saying that Draisaitl and McDavid, it was going to be $30 million combined.
Yeah.
And I would say that Draisaitl signing for 14 was an excellent start to that theory for you.
Yeah.
So 16 mil next year for Connor?
15 and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It totally depends.
Maybe less
in Toronto
if he's generous, but
some people love to
Connor's
see
going to
him take what he's
feel.
worth.
Let me tell you something. That Connor is going to feel like there's the Edmonton story, but there's also the NHLPA story.
Yes.
And this is where
the Sid thing, right?
the Sid thing, he gets away with it because he's 37, 38, and it's a different feel. It's a 2-year deal. Connor will have a lot more pressure, not just to look after the Edmonton Oilers and his teammates, but to do the right thing too, to not undersell.
You got to drive it up.
To a certain extent, yes. And if he wanted to come at them at 17 or 18 million with a $95 million contract, he'd have every right. But I don't think he'll necessarily do that because Evan Bouchard needs his 10, and Nurse is still at 9.5,
Right.
and
But it
Is there
is
more
hard
of a
when the
killer
next-
contract in the league than that Nurse one? My
you know,
God.
so I think what my theory was always 16, 14, 17, 13, somewhere, but
It does
I
stink,
think-
though, if McDavid signs for 15 or something, and then you're Connor Bedard or whoever that's coming up as a big name center, and they go, well, you can't
just-
get more than McDavid.
or
It's like, well,
you can pull a Swayman and say, I don't give a crap.
pay
I don't
me.
give a crap. Pay me. Pay me what I think the market dictates
He just
today.
won't do that.
He's the last guy in the league that will do that.
Who?
McDavid.
McDavid looked at Sid and went, I'm closer to that than I am, any other guy. He wants to be that. He wants to win.
Take less. He took
Only
less on
32
this one.
teams. It's really hard to be on a winning team.
And apparently Gary said yesterday it's not going to be 34. Like we all thought immediately.
Expansion. He didn't.
Yeah, he
poo-pooed
didn't.
it?
He kind of threw a little cold water on it, but he wasn't. Because everybody was pretty hot about
Gary's
that.
thrown cold water on a lot of hot things, and it remained hot.
It hasn't extinguished it.
No,
No. Okay.
no.
Yeah. Is Arizona leaving? No.
No.
We remain committed.
Utah.
Next day. Bye.
Utah.
Yeah.
And well,
Utah immediately.
because wasn't there like an announcement that it was going to be Houston and not
Atlanta.
an announcement, but like a report?
Yeah.
It's Houston and Atlanta.
Is it?
Barf.
What's his Anson Carter's like? All but said they're getting a team in Atlanta. Like it's a done deal.
And what? At $2 million?
Buh.
You mean? You
2
said-
billion.
Yeah.
2
I
billion,
was like,
sorry.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cheap. I think we could get
I
it
don't
on.
2 billion, I meant.
I mean, yeah, got to be north of that because I think
Real cash to keep the engine going here, and good on them if they want this toy that makes no money and makes no sense. Like,
But the thing with those guys is that they believe that the way, if like these uber rich guys, like, I will be the one that will make it work in Atlanta. I will be the one that makes it work in Houston where they don't care about hockey at
I
all.
think it's more. I get to say I own a team in the league, and that's all I care about.
You
I don't
think?
care if we lose $20 million a year.
Wow.
20's a lot.
I want a friend like that.
Yeah, you
don't
got a
have it.
couple.
You got a
You
few
got
of
a
those.
couple.
I don't get to hang out with
I
them
saw
as
you in Ottawa
often as I
sitting by
like.
Bill Burr during the
Yeah, this
owner fiasco.
This guy was
maybe
this
I-
guy played golf with Rafa Nadal. He's like, I wish I had a friend like that.
There's none in this room. I can tell you
That's
that.
for sure. Oh my God! Well, another
Yeah,
show in the
so-
books here, boys.
Is that 2 in a row?
Yeah,
Well, we're on a roll.
that's how we got.
And tomorrow, you and I are on the Leafs broadcast on the television game.
And is that a home game for that we're doing for the Leafs?
Yep, it's in Toronto.
You know nothing.
Not
It's in
yet.
Toronto.
I'll do my
Supposed
research
to pay
in the
more
morning.
attention than me.
I pay
The one thing
attention.
I told
That's
you
what
4
they are.
years ago, just pay more attention than
The
me.
bar's so low, Kip. I do.
All right, our thanks to Jason Bukala, former NHL head scout. Does a terrific job not only on our show, but on Sportsnet as well. All right, Sammy, JB, what's up for tonight? More baseball for you?
Wanted to watch The Penguin, the new series.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So maybe starting that tonight.
I thought that was a Pittsburgh thing. But
All right, if you get a chance, download us or watch us on YouTube. Give us a rating and review if you also get a chance. Have a great night, everybody.